Pick a move in the ring. You can hit me with the words you fling.
All right, it's Nick Atkin and Chris Edwards-Bailey in the studio in Hong Kong. It's a little bit packed here, but we got to do what we got to do. And John Hyun-Go is over in Korea. We're going to break down UFC Vegas 4, UFC on ESPN 12, UFC Fight Night, whatever you want to call it. I guess there's only one place to start. We got to go to that huge main event. Dustin Poirier getting a unanimous decision against Dan Hooker in what was a completely violent, bloody, brutal war, an instant classic. I think that second round is one of the best rounds I've ever seen. John, just incredible fight, wasn't it? Really lived up to the billing.
Yeah, definitely lived up to the billing. I feel Dan Hooker, he came in and implemented a great game plan in the first two rounds. It just seemed like he just took too much damage and kind of gassed a little bit going into the third and the fourth, and that's why he started to wrestle. I think he kind of had to pull that out of his back pocket. It was working somewhat, but Dustin, he's fought in so many main events that he's just used to that type of fight. You know what I mean? He's been in so many firefights, so many wars that he can just adjust on the fly. And what's trippy about Dustin Poirier is like he looks like he's tired in the beginning of the fight, but then he gets into this next level, this next gear, and then he pulls off this, incredible pace for the rest of the, 3 rounds or 2 rounds, where he was dominating pretty much. It was just fun to watch, and it was one of the reasons you love this sport. It's one of the reasons that you look at this sport and respect the fighters so much because of the toughness, the grit, the skill, the athleticism, everything both these guys put into this fight, and I enjoyed it so much. I just I feel like Dan Hooker doesn't even lose. He doesn't even lose in his status as a fighter, as a top lightweight. I feel like he kind of proved to everybody in the division that he deserves to be at the table with all the top guys, with Khabib, with Ferguson, with McGregor, with Poirier. And that's just what I saw at this fight, is that Hooker went in there and did his thing. And of course, Dustin won the fight, but he just seemed like the regular Dustin, right? It didn't seem like he was better than he was before. What do you think, Chris?
I always had Dustin to win this fight. I think he's the better fighter. I think it was a great fight. Fantastic. Blood everywhere. Claret all over the clothes. I absolutely love it. But the first 2 rounds, I think we can all agree they were definitely Dan Hooker's. And the last 3 we saw Poirier use his guile and everything he's built up through the years. I mean, people forget, I think Poirier is, I want to say 31 years old. This is 9 years, I think he's been in the UFC. I mean, 10 years if you extend that to his WEC days as part of the Zuffa organization. And he just has that little bit more experience. And I think we actually saw the difference between a top level fighter and a great fighter. I just think Poirier is just that touch better than him. And I don't really know what Dan Hooker can do to get it. I think he's a great stand and bang guy. He's a fantastic kickboxer, but I don't think he's as well-rounded as Poirier. I'm a little bit upset in a way because I actually think Dan Hooker would have been the perfect opponent if he would have won to fight Conor McGregor. I think Conor McGregor would have loved it. I think it's the right matchup for him, but I don't think he gets it. And I don't think Poirier McGregor 2 is exactly the one. I'm not sure if that's a big enough one to get Conor back.
I want to go back to what you said about... Yeah, I want to go back to what you said about Hooker. I feel like Hooker is just starting his reign as one of the top lightweights in the world. Dustin's been there for years and years and years, and he just proved that he is still one of those guys. But Hooker, he's going to get better. And one thing that he pointed out when I interviewed him before this fight is that one clear advantage that Dustin Poirier has over him is Dustin Poirier has been in like 8 main events, 5-round fights, and he's only been in 1, which was the last one against Paul Felder, and it played out that way. Like you said, the experience came through, and Poirier showed that he can fight at a high pace, at a high level for 25 minutes. Dan showed that he could fight for maybe 2 or 3 rounds, right? And if this fight was 3-rounder, I feel like Dan would have won the fight, right? But it wasn't. It was a 5-rounder, and Dustin came in and did his job. Going to what you said about Poirier McGregor 2, I want to see that. like Poirier, he has 3 options, right? He has the Ferguson fight, he has McGregor, but McGregor's retired, so it's like we shouldn't even be talking about it, you know what I mean? And then you got the winner of Khabib versus Justin, but if Khabib wins, then Poirier's out in the rain. Justin wins, Poirier has a win over Justin. That's a major fight right there. So if I'm Poirier, I'm rooting for Justin to upset Khabib in September and get that fight at the end of the year, you know, in December.
Yeah, totally agree with you. The only problem I have with it is I actually think if anyone beats Khabib in the next few years, we have him. I think because he is such a big name, he's such a huge star, he's got that incredible record without a single loss on it. I think he gets an automatic rematch at the belt anyway if he were to lose to anyone. I think it's pretty much done and said in his contract. So I guess that holds up the division. But yeah, fantastic fight, and they both did really, really well. And I do agree with John that I think we'll see a better Dan Hooker a year on from now, 2 years on from now. And I think that's when we'll see a prime Dan Hooker. While I think Poirier already knows how to implement his game plan, he knows how to dominate the opponent, and we're seeing him in his prime. And that's pretty much it. And you look, 9 years in the UFC, and it's a great fighter because we've all seen him grow up. You can go onto the fight library and watch pretty much all his fights over the last 10 decades, starting when he was 21, 22.
Right, Dan Hooker talked a bit of smack, didn't he, in the build-up to everything, and even came out to one of Dustin Poirier's old walkout songs. I think that did annoy Dustin a little bit. You could see from his interview here, I'm just going to bring it up on screen. He spoke to John Anik after the fight. He didn't actually come in for a press conference because he went to hospital. For what it's worth.
It was a tough one, man. Dan came in the fight. He's a tough guy. He's on the rise. He really thought that he was going to get past me. He talked a lot of trash, like he was going to move forward and fight the champ. But I'm the champ, man. This is what I do. I love this. I put all the work in. And I trusted in my team and my skill and my work ethic, and came here, pulled another one out, and I had a few more rounds left in me. It was a tough one, man. Dan came in the fight.
Sorry, Dan. Sorry, Dustin, to cut you off. I feel like Dustin proved a bit of a point for anyone doubting him, didn't he, Chris? And he's still here, isn't he? He's not going away.
Oh, he is definitely still here. I mean, with that win over Dan Hooker, there is arguably probably only Khabib and Gaethje right now that you can say are actually ranked above him. And he is in that kind of limbo spot now with a McGregor and with a Ferguson who will just be looking to get active. I mean, you don't really want to fight anyone coming up. There's no other really big names outside, though. Poirier's already pretty much fought all the big names in the division, apart from Ferguson. So, he has solidified his name, and we will see him for countless times to come.
I want to check this video of him in the ambulance as well. It's crazy. You can see the damage that he went through. It was a really brutal fight. Here you go. I'm going to rewind that, sorry. Up on the screen here. 3, 2, 1. All right, yeah. Look at that. Oh, the eye.
That was a fun one. Going to the hospital, get my head scanned. Then going to see my wife, going home, see my daughter. Thank you all.
And I think, John, that just another snippet of what a great guy Dustin Poirier is, isn't it? I mean, he got the Forrest Griffin Community Award for all his work with the Good Fight Foundation. I think there's a lot of love out there for Dustin Poirier, and I think definitely we saw there's a lot of interest in this fight. He's a real star, isn't he?
He is definitely a star, you know what I mean? Like, he is just one of the good guys of the sport, I guess. There's a lot of good guys of the sport, but he seems like he has used his position wisely and helped a lot of people out throughout the community where he's from. And, what can you say? Giving him this award is just something that the UFC is kind of rewarding him for doing, and being a good representative for the company. And that's what Dustin Poirier is. He's a good representative inside and outside the cage. Going back to what you said about Dan Hooker talking a little trash before the fight, that's what Dan Hooker does. You know what I mean? That's what Dan knows what he's doing. He knows that, and the questions that the reporters are asking him, that's the questions that he's answering, is to kind of say like, hey, if I beat Justin or Dustin, I'm going to go fight Justin. Right. Like that's just natural for him. And I don't think Poirier should take offense to that. I'm just wondering, like, where does Hooker go from here? I feel like he's a top 5 guy. There's a few fights out there for him. He could fight Ferguson, right? That's also Ferguson's coming off a loss too. That would be a good fight. Charles Oliveira is a good fight. Charles, I think he's won like 8 in a row. He needs a big name. Hooker would be a great fight for him. You know what I mean? Like there's those 2 fights that I look for in Hooker, right? Other than I don't know. I don't see him fighting somebody down the line. I don't see him fighting somebody that's at like number 10 or anything like that. I feel like the UFC is gonna reward him for this fight. Because think about it. He flew all the way from New Zealand to fight in a 5-round war during the COVID crisis. Come on. Has anybody done that yet? Nobody's done that in the UFC. You know what I mean? Like they need to reward him. And I feel like maybe that had a factor in him kind of gassing towards like the end of the 3rd. You know, of course the damage was something there, but I'm saying like that flight it's not beneficial for a fighter, right? So yeah, what do you think? What do you think's next for Hooker, Chris?
Well, you said you didn't want to see him fight someone too far down, but I think after that big war coming off a loss, it might be good to get his confidence up. And I'll tell you one name I'd love to see him fight, just because he hasn't really been in there. I guess Al Iaquinta has a good wrestling background. I'd love to see him go in there with Kevin Lee. Yeah, Kevin Lee brings a name, he brings eyes. Kevin Lee is quite flamboyant, very, very popular fighter in the UFC. Hasn't really worked out for him so far. Constantly anything. I think Dan Hooker, Kevin Lee would be a fantastic fight. And despite Kevin Lee's fairly poor record, everyone does agree on some level he is a top level guy. I mean, this is the blue ribbon division of the UFC. This is the best division, the most stacked division. I mean, and that's it. And Dan Hooker has fought so many of those big names towards the top. He's fought the Al Iaquintas in the middle. I feel like a Kevin Lee would be absolutely perfect for him.
Yeah, I can't argue with that.
I mean, just going back to what John was saying about the flight from New Zealand, and Dan Hooker's going to have to quarantine now as well for 2 weeks. When he goes
he's
back.
going to need it.
Yeah,
but he's going to need it with the damage that he took.
Just more again on the sacrifice he made. He's going to have to. I think I was reading about it. Spend 2 weeks. His family are allowed to visit him, but they have to keep 10 feet distance. I think he does deserve to be rewarded with something good. So let's see what the UFC offers him. But fair play to Dan. I think he would have won a lot of fans tonight as well. It was you said earlier he lost, but it wasn't a loss. It was a win for him in terms of his popularity is going to go up. And I think everyone saw he can really hang now. But anyway, we better move down the card. Co-main event. Yes. Actually, sorry, one last thing. Forgot to say. Tony Ferguson v. Dustin Poirier. That was put to Dustin by Ariel Hawani. Here's his response, just in case you were wondering. Let me rest, bro. Yeah, it could be a while before we see Dustin fight again anyway, right, Chris?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I think take some time off, let the body heal. Wait until that fight. I think it's going to be September. Wait until the title fight, see what the division looks like. I mean, and there's also Dustin, fantastic guy, seems amazing. We've all watched him grow up, fantastic fighter. Also, just to add to the Dan Hooker thing, he has one huge advantage being from New Zealand in the fact that it's one of the few places we can have big crowds, so he could be back in action sooner than we think.
That would be cool, definitely. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, let's get to Mike Perry. I'm going to bring up this as well. Mike Perry beat Mickey Gall by a very convincing unanimous decision, I thought. I'll bring up the scorecards, but I think it was all. They all had 2 rounds for Perry, 1 for Gall. I'm not quite sure where Gall got around.
I had all 3 for Mike Perry. I thought he outdone him, outfought him, outsmarted him. I thought he was absolutely fantastic. I mean, to not have any cornerman or corner person in his corner and to do what he did was fantastic. He looked so calm between rounds. And to anyone who hasn't seen this fight, if I had to describe it in one sentence, I'd say a man versus a boy, and that's how I would see this fight. Mickey Gall, to me, has not really done it yet in the UFC. Fantastic jiu-jitsu background. Every time I see glimpses of like today, actually, I thought this was some of the best striking we've seen from him. Funnily enough, obviously, just Mike Perry and his boxing background is just fantastic. I mean, Mickey Gall, I think he's still about 26. I think he'll just learn from this loss, and I just feel a bit sorry for him because he's just not really getting that ball rolling. But Mike Perry, anyway, is not a bad name to lose to, and has been a solid welterweight the whole time.
Yeah, John, lot of crazy stuff happening in this fight, wasn't it? We knew what we were in for, but I think everyone wanted to see just exactly how it was going to play out with Mike Perry having his girlfriend, Tori Gonzalez, in his corner. It was something, wasn't it? What did you make of all that?
It was really nothing. You know, she came in, she held the ice behind his neck, on his head, and you know, gave him encouragement. That's what he wanted. And I feel like that's what he wanted at the end of the day. He didn't want somebody in the corner screaming at him, because if you go back to some interviews that he did a few events back, he was tired of his corners just yelling things at him and instructions that didn't make any sense for him during the fight. And that's why he decided to go with his girl, because he knew his girl was going to listen to him and keep her mouth shut and give just encouragement. And that's what he needed. And he went in there and did his job. Mickey Gall, though, you know, he went out there. I felt like in the first round he was doing really well, you know, but then he just got hit too much by Mike Perry. Mike Perry has bombs, and when you land those bombs, you're not going to be normal, you know what I mean, for a while. So Mickey Gall, when he got to that second round, it was just like he was just wearing it. And yeah, Mike Perry, what can you say? Mike Perry is Mike Perry. He's going to fight, and we're going to love him for it, and he's going to act abnormal at times. We're going to love him for it. Mickey Gall, I agree with Chris. UFC has given him so many opportunities to get big wins, and he just falls short every single time. And it's just like, it's questionable, like his game planning for this fight. It's like I would have thought that you would go in there from the first round and mixed it up more. You know what I mean? Fought an all around fight, not just sit there and start swinging with Mike Perry, even though he was doing decent in the first round. But yeah, when I was looking at this fight, I was thinking, you know, Mickey Gall, maybe he learned from his mistakes in his previous fights. He's going to go in there and find the easiest path to victory. And he did not find that path. And it just seemed like he didn't even have a plan B. He's just stuck. And he even got controlled by Mike Perry on the ground. Mike Perry was showing another level of his ground skills against Mickey Gall, because a lot of people thought Mickey Gall had a better ground game than Mike Perry, but it wasn't the case. And that's it. Mike Perry won the fight. Where does Mike Perry go from here? Where does he go, Chris?
Well,
Nico Price? Everybody always wants to fight Nico Price.
Nico Price would be fantastic. To tell you the truth, I think he needs to get his move down to the south of Florida. I think he needs to find himself some training partners before he starts thinking about his next fight. I mean, the world is Mike Perry's ocean. And while he might not actually get to that very, very top level, he has the ability to become like a Pettis or a Cerrone. He can be that gatekeeper, earn a good income, make a good living, hopefully, fingers crossed, pay his tax. And can I say one thing about Mickey Gall? If he's listening, get your ass down to Tiger Muay Thai. I think you need to learn to keep your hands up. And I'll tell you what, anyone who does striking, enjoys watching striking, you should watch Mickey Gall in this fight, because the footwork is actually very, very poor.
Well, I just wanted to play the video as well of this corner interaction. And then I will, as you alluded to, get to Mike Perry's rant about tax. The tax man's coming for him. Yeah, just for anyone who hasn't seen it.
Hey, you look good, man.
You're doing good. You're doing great. I'm sorry that.
Some great words of advice there. Hey, it worked, right? So a lot of fighters are all saying, I'm going to have my girlfriend, my boyfriend, my husband, my wife in my corner next. It's all fun, isn't it? But
yeah, I mean, it's really, really hard, because especially now with no crowds and taking your whole team with you, on some level, you have to think maybe it is a better idea, because one, you haven't got to pay anyone to be in your corners. If it's your wife or your girlfriend, you can save money. And two, right now, should your coaches even be flying halfway around the country then to go back to a gym and potentially spread the coronavirus? I mean, no, but all respect to Mike Perry. He said he was going to do it. I actually thought he would have showed up with someone professional. Actually, I thought it was all just a bit of a joke, but it turned out not to be. And much respect to him. Much respect.
I gotta get this.
But he's not the first person to have their like girlfriend or wife in the corner, though. You know what I mean? I think they're kind of overblowing this. Like Sam Alvey, Darren Cruikshank, Andre Sukumtat. You know, there's been a bunch of guys that have had their girlfriend or wife in the corner.
Have a professional as well in the corner. I can't think of anyone else who's just had the girlfriend or wife.
But that's great that what you said is like, maybe that's the way to go, you know, in this pandemic era, is just take your girlfriend, because why? You guys could sit in quarantine together, and you don't have to put your coaches at risk, because they have to go back and work in the gym and work with other fighters, and they have families of their own. This could be a new trend that Mike Perry has created. But Mike Perry, he's only 28 years old. I don't even think he hit his prime yet. You could tell he's extremely talented, extremely tough, and all he needs to do is go and find the best people to cultivate that. You know what I mean? Bring the best out of him. And he could be a top 10 fighter if he wants to be. It's just, is he going to go in there and do it? You know what I mean? Is he going to put the work in outside and surround himself with the right people? Because he's not going to do it with his girlfriend as the head coach. Come on, let's be honest. You know what I mean? Like, he's not going to roll with her and get better at jiu-jitsu. It's just not happening.
Do you think like a Pettis, Magny, Lawler, people lower down the welterweight rankings, do you think they're anywhere near Perry's close enough to fight any of them, or not quite yet?
No, I don't even think any of them would take a fight against Perry. That's like big risk, no reward, right? Because Perry's such a big power puncher. Perry's going to fight somebody that's on the edge of the top 15. And if he wins that one, then I feel like the UFC will reward him, just because he's Mike Perry, just because he brings that excitement. I'm just wondering, like, what happens to Mickey Gall? You know what I mean? He's 6-3.
Yep.
You know, and I think all 3 losses have been in the UFC. What is his UFC record? Like,
and
1-3?
Some of those wins, I mean, does Mike Jackson really count as a top tier win?
He's a journalist.
Count as a top tier win? Do you know what I mean?
He's a wrestler.
Yeah.
Okay, so he beat a journalist, and then he beat a pro wrestler. So, and then didn't he beat one guy who's actually a fighter?
He beat Sage Northcutt. I know that.
Okay, Sage Northcutt, and then you see what happened to him. He got his face crushed in one championship. Yeah. But and if you think about it, Sage Northcutt is he's an actor. So we got an actor, we got a pro wrestler, and a journalist, and Mickey Gall's beaten all of them. So he's the legend. He's the legend killer of, like, people that are not really fighters. No, I'm just kidding. But those are all fighters. They'll all probably beat the shit out of me. You know what I mean? But anyways, Mickey Gall, he definitely needs some changes in his life, especially with the fighting stuff, because he seems like he's really confident, you know what I mean, in like his skills. But when he goes out there and you lose, it's like, how do you continue that confidence? You know what I mean? You gotta go and train and improve yourself when you're out of fight camp. And hopefully Mickey Gall does that. If he doesn't, then he's just going to end up, you know, he's going to end up like a Mike Jackson. You know what I mean? We're just going to forget about him. And he's just going to be known as the guy that lost to Mike Perry when Mike Perry only had his girlfriend in his corner. That's it.
Talking about the girlfriend. Yeah, Mike, this is what Mike Perry said afterwards. He said that a lot of haters hating on us, on her. And she's so innocent in all this. Obviously, it's because I talk from an entertainment side of the sport, and because they're hating on me so hard. But she did a great job. She kept it very simple. I heard a couple of things during the fight and remember thinking, okay, she's getting into it now. There was one time Mickey Gall had swung and just missed, and she said, get your hands back up. Then in the corner, when she was rubbing ice on me, she kept asking me what I wanted and what can I do, trying to do more for me. It was really cool just sitting there quiet and thinking about how the next round is going to do. So clearly, Mike Perry liked it. I'm sure we'll maybe see Miss Gonzalez again.
Yeah.
I just wanted to play a little bit of his crazy tax rant. It's so funny.
I'm gonna go find that team. I gotta make some moves. I gotta take this money. I gotta move to a new area, me and my girl. And there's some big things happening in my life. And I'm going to go put some things together. I got to pay some bills, pay some debts. I got to go talk to the tax folk and see if we can run that number down, because I believe I paid out, over $100,000 last year between a couple different countries, and then they trying to hit me again at the end of the year. It's almost like I don't even fight for minimum wage sometimes. So, and look, I ain't trying to be one of these guys asking for more money. I'm not. I'm asking for the government to stop taking so much of this. So, you know what I mean? Like, something got to work work out, maybe we put in contract that the taxes is paid when platinum gets paid. Like when I get paid, that's it, y'all. That's my money. You don't give me money if you don't want me to spend it, and then you're gonna come back and ask me for something later. Right. That don't even make no sense. I'm trying to wild out, bro. I need my ties on the beach.
I don't disagree with you, and congrats on a big.
You just see how awkward John Anik is there. I love it.
Well, it reminds me of accounting 101 back in university. I mean, I'd love it if all of us had to pay no tax. I mean, it is pretty obvious to work out. I mean, for absolutely anyone watching, that if you don't get charged tax, you get to keep more of your money, but that's not how the world works.
Just a classic Mike Perry rant, I think. He also went off on Darren Till in the press conference, but I don't think we've got time to get into that. I'll move on because we better get through the rest of this card. John, let's go to you. Submission for Maurice Greene against Gian Villante in the third round. It was a strange submission, wasn't it? Everybody was a bit confused when the fight ended. It was a modified choke from the bottom, I think. What did you make of it all?
It was a head and arm choke from the bottom. He was mounted basically, and Maurice Greene is 6'7", so his arms are like 8 feet long. So even if you're mounted from the bottom, he can wrap his arms around you and squeeze real tight to the point where you're going to tap. And that's what happened in this fight. What's important is before that, he was getting the living daylights beaten out of him by Gian Villante for a period of about 30 seconds. Gian Villante was putting this massive barrage, and Greene was winning the whole fight up to that point, right? He was using his length. He was like sticking and moving and doing a great job the first 2 rounds, and then he just got caught with a counter, an overhand left hand dropped him or something. And it's like they could have stopped the fight right there, right? I felt like it could have been stopped, but the referee let it go, and then Maurice Greene just locked up the neck, and Villante tapped. It was a weird sequence of events. That's right.
Yeah, it was just a really, really odd fight. And at one point when Gian Villante started dominating Maurice Greene, it seemed like Maurice Greene had run out of gas. And then when Villante got on top of him, then he seemed to run out of gas. I mean, I think both fighters could do with a little work on their cardio. And I think Gian Villante, I don't think it's actually his weight class. A lot of people are saying it looks like I don't think it's his weight class. I think he's got a bit of timber around the midriff to lose. I think he could do with working on his cardio because he's actually a fighter I like. I think he's a good mid-level guy who has exciting fights and likes to stand and bang.
He came in 50 pounds heavier. 50 pounds. He weighed at 255. He fights at 205. That's crazy to me. 50 pounds, and he looked like kind of similar to Roy Nelson in many ways, just without the mullet and the beard. And Gian Villante, man, he's a fighter. He's kind of like a Mike Perry, He's not like as loud and rambunctious, but the style is kind of similar. He goes out there and he bangs, even though he could actually probably put his skills to use better. And it just shows you a lot of these guys that are moving up to heavyweight from 205. If you're not a DC or that level of fighter, it's probably not a good idea to move up in weight. Stay there. And that's what makes the Alex Gustafsson fight coming up soon very interesting. But going back to Greene, where does he go from here? Tanner Boser earlier that night got the knockout against Felipe Lins, calls out Maurice Greene because Maurice Greene turned down the fight against him a few fights back. Maurice Greene said, sure, let's fight. It's all good. That's when I was in the top 15. Now I'm not. I guess the fight makes sense. Villante, he needs to go back to 205. But Greene was very emotional after the fight, man. Did you guys catch that?
Yeah. I was just going to play the video here. One sec. All right.
It's kind of heartbreaking a little bit.
Okay. Hey, submission wins a submission win.
All right, let me say something. I was on 2-fight skid. It's critical. You win all your fights, so my job was kind of on the line tonight. And, I want to move my family, and I needed to win to move my family. And, we packed up in 3 days. It drove 24 hours, spent 3 weeks at Jackson Wink, and we got it done. And, man, it's an amazing feeling back with Colin. I know I'm crying. I'm always crying out to you, man. It's just like a weight's lifted off my shoulders, especially when you're the breadwinner in the family. So It feels so good.
Yeah, very emotional. But I think the takeaway is, again, this issue of UFC fighter pay, isn't it, John?
Exactly. Yeah, when I actually spoke to Maurice Greene before this fight too, and he was explaining his oral deal, moving down to Jackson Wings. He was actually at Factory X for the last couple of camps, and the reason why he went to Jackson Wings is because he needed to change. You know what I mean? Like he said right there, his job was on the line. He needed to make some big changes, and Jackson Wink has a bunch of heavyweights and a bunch of 205ers that he could just kind of practice with them. And I guess Factor X did not have that. And then you got, of course, Greg Jackson and then Mike Winklejohn there to help him mentally and prepare for it. And it worked out for him. You know what I mean? In some ways, he kind of squeaked past it. But, hey, sometimes the universe works in funny ways. But I wonder how much he's getting paid. I don't really know how much he's getting paid, but I don't think he's probably still on the Ultimate Fighter contracts, which are not very good contracts. But yeah, man, it kind of sucks that he had to win this fight. You hate to hear that. I have to win this fight because I need to move my family and support them. Man, it's heartbreaking, dude. Like, some guys don't even get to fight twice a year, and imagine being in that situation every year.
Indeed. It was heartbreaking to watch, but it so sticks in the throat. They're like, why should these guys have to sacrifice their whole everything just for so little money? Anyway, I guess we should move on because we're going to talk about Brendan Allen against Kyle Daukaus. Unanimous decision for Brendan Allen. I think, Chris, this was one of those things where the scorecard, there was a bit of an errant round, wasn't there?
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to try and bring it up here.
Were absolutely terrible. And you know what? I get we got the right decision probably overall, but I absolutely hate a scorecard that does a fighter such a disservice. I mean, I think one judge gave the final round a 10-8 and the other one gave it 10-9 the other way, which is absolutely madness. Have you brought it up on the screen now, sir?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the first round was a 10-8.
Yeah.
We've got what do you
And then
think, John?
someone gave Brendan Allen the third round.
Yes, this is it.
Which is insane to even think about. Like, what fight were you watching? Did you go take a bathroom break for 5 minutes? I don't understand. Like, that's just crazy to me. Who was it? Was it Adelaide Bird? Because I heard that she was sitting down as one of the judges.
It was Dave Hagen, I think, on the pink.
Who the hell is Dave Hagen? He needs to be fired, right? Like, come on, get him out of there. He doesn't know what he's doing.
Yeah.
To giving a 10-9 to Brendan Allen, even though Brendan Allen, I felt like he won the fight, but still, that third round was controlled by Daukaus, man. Daukaus, it's his first fight, his debut on short notice in the UFC. I felt like he did a great job. You know what I mean? Like, he fought his ass off. Like, he was losing this fight, and that third round, he tried to come back and finish it. It didn't work out for him, but he's going to be a decent prospect to kind of look for, coming up in the future. He was supposed to be on the Contender Series, but it shows like he doesn't need to go there. He could be in the UFC right now. Brendan Allen, that's 3 in a row in the UFC. He's undefeated. He's also a guy from the Contender Series. What's next for him? I say put that Ian Heinisch fight together. What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, I think when you get such a good, perfect matchup, one calls out the other, it seems like a match made in heaven. Brendan Allen looked really, really good. Maybe some questions about his cardio in this game, because in that third round, I thought he was quite clearly dominated. I mean, it wasn't quite a 10-8, but if he could have maintained position for the rest of the round, it probably would have been.
All right, well, what about this one? Takashi Sato was a 48-second, I think it was, TKO over Jason Witt. Takashi from Japan. John, you brought this one to my attention on Twitter about how Sato, he was going to fight in New Zealand, wasn't he? But then, even though his father had died, and he had to miss the whole funeral, and then the fight fell through, so he didn't even get to fight. So probably a very sweet, emotional moment for him, wasn't it?
Yeah, it must have been, you know what I mean? He didn't seem like it, in the post fight. He didn't get like teary-eyed or anything like that, but like when what was it? UFC Auckland. That's the event. He was supposed to fight Maki Pitoli, and Maki Pitoli, he missed. What is it? He got sick during the weight cut, and then they just canceled the fight. But leading up to it, he was in camp in Florida. His father was sick and basically on his deathbed. And his father told him, like, hey, don't come back to Japan. Stay in Florida, concentrate on your fight, and then, and go and perform. And that's what he did. And then he didn't get to do that, which is heartbreaking for everybody to hear. And then he goes in here. And this was also a crazy lead up too, where his opponent, Cornerman, tested positive for coronavirus. So of course his whole team had to be pulled from the event. And then they brought in this guy, Jason Witt, from I think he's from James Krause's camp, on like a couple days notice, and gets a 40-second knockout win, which is, man, it must feel incredible. I thought they should have gave him a bonus with all the stuff that was going on, you know what I mean? But I wonder if they still give those locker room money. I hope so.
Yeah, Takashi Sato is a fantastic fighter. I had the opportunity to go and see him about 3-4 years ago. I think when he was still in Pancrase, he could have just been in deep just before he went back to Pancrase. But fantastic fighter, fantastic power. I would actually like to see him fight Maki Pitolo next. The one he was supposed to fight in New Zealand would be fantastic. I feel really sorry for Jason Witt taking the fight on 3 days' notice, getting knocked out, borderline. I'm not going to say it was humiliating, but no one likes to get knocked out. And yeah, but Sato is a smooth operator. I was watching the fight with my girlfriend, and I said, do not blink. This will be over in the first round. And Sato proved me right. Fantastic fighter.
So you're not in the doghouse then?
Not in the doghouse, no, not yet.
Yeah, Chris and I had a few drinks last night. So,
yeah, a few too many. Got a little bit wild.
Yeah, although let's move on to this. I think this was the first fight on the main card. I think they did shuffle it around a little bit, but we had Julian Erosa getting submission by Darce choke over Sean Woodson in 2:44 of round 3. John, walk us through it.
Yeah, this was the biggest upset on the main card, or probably on the whole show. Sean Woodson, undefeated, probably one of the tallest, longest featherweights in the history of the division, comes in and takes on Julian Erosa. Erosa's third time in the UFC. You don't hear that. You know what I mean? Third stint in the UFC, late notice fight. Julian is a perfect example of a guy that's in Vegas, that trains in Vegas, and took advantage of the opportunity that the UFC, gave him for this fight, and went in there, and he was getting beat, I felt like, for the first couple of rounds, but he just stuck in there and just kept on taking the punches and keep moving forward. And Woodson kind of got flustered in some ways, and he got tired, and that's what basically happened. And in a scramble, Erosa locked up a Darce choke, and Woodson couldn't do anything about it, and it was over. That was the first loss. A couple first losses in their careers. You got Dawkins, we just talked about. He lost for the first time, and then now Sean Woodson loses for the first time. But Sean Woodson, he's still a guy that is a big prospect, I believe, in the division, just because of his physical attributes. And keep an eye on him, man. He's gonna be a problem for a lot of guys in the division. But Julian Erosa, man, redemption. That's what it is. He was in the Tough House. He was on the Contender Series. Now he comes back for the third time and gets a win. Massive for him.
Woodson has fantastic stand-up game. Just the only thing that would worry me about him, like, I do believe all the hype. I think he's fantastic. I think he's a future contender. But just 3 times getting taken down in a 3-round fight, maybe he does not. That shows there's something he probably needs to work on in his takedown defense. And the moment he took him down that final time and then went for the submission, there was something about it that just made me feel like it was coming. He'd started to bleed. He looked like it was the first time he'd really faced adversity, and the first time he'd been in a fight as opposed to being in an athletic competition, because this was a fight. Fantastic way to kick off the card, fantastically great, entertaining. And I guess with us finishing up on the main card now, this has actually been one of the best main cards that I've seen in a while. Just a wide variety, great emotion of the fighters, different types of finishes, absolutely fantastic, and a great main event and a great co-main.
All right, I guess we can scan through the prelims a bit. I think probably, John, we should We should start with that one there. Karma Worthy. Wow, another upset for Death Star. Submission guillotine choke over Luis Pena. Round 3, 253. Awesome performance from Karma Worthy again. That's 2 in a row now where he's just completely shocked everyone, hasn't he?
Yeah, I don't know if he shocked everyone, but he performed well. You know, he kind of showed that he could get in there in the first round and knock somebody out, and then he showed that he could go to the third round and finish somebody with a submission, because his first fight was like a 30-second knockout, and then now he gets a late third round submission. He shows variety. Kama Worthy he's a guy that, like, go watch his interviews. He's so interesting, man. He says what is on his mind, and his perspective is so unique. And and going in there and beating Luis Pena, which a lot of people are hyped about Luis Pena, like they feel like he's gonna be a big factor or a big name coming up in the future. And Kama Worthy put a stop to that real quick. I like Kama Worthy. You know, he's undefeated in the UFC so far, 2-0. He should get a decent name, I feel like. When I talked to him last time, he told me that they were trying to set him up against Drew Dober on late notice. And, and I don't think he's going to fight Drew Dober next, but they should give him somebody like who's a veteran that could kind of bring a little bit more attention to him in his next fight. He said he wants to go to Fight Island right away, and I could see him flying over there next month. And then you got Bozer with the knockout win. You got Kay Hansen with the upset. And then Jordan Griffin, Youssef Zalal, he gets a decision. If anything stands out, it's probably, I don't know. It's hard. There's those 3 fighters, Worthy, Tanner, Bozer, and Kay Hansen. They all did wonderful job in their fights. And it's just insane what happened. But go ahead.
Tanner Bozer was an absolute shock to me, and beating Felipe Lins. But the only issue I actually had with Felipe was, and I've gone on about this every single time I'm on the podcast, is fighting 6 weeks after his last fight. It's absolutely ridiculous. Take some time off, please, just for your own sake. It's no good to be fighting that close together. Your body's not fully healed. You can't have a proper fight camp. And I think he suffered for it tonight. I think sometimes you have to stop thinking about the check and plot a long trajectory in your career. And I mean, Felipe Lins has no necessity to be out straight again, as you guys reminded me before the show that he won the $1 million in the PFL. So he shouldn't be financially stretched as long as he's been wise with his planning.
Who knows how much he actually got of that million?
Yeah.
He's probably paid in installments as well over something like 10 years. So you're probably not giving it all.
Maybe he has the same money manager as Mike Perry, so that's a deal that's going on. But so it was a night of upsets. If you think about it, Kay Hansen was an upset, Bozer was an upset, Worthy was an upset. If you go down the line, Erosa was an upset. Even like just a couple of upsets. I mean, in the prelims. But it's weird that the prelims was shorter than the main card. I don't think I've ever seen that before. Have you guys seen that?
Very rarely.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen that before, but it was overall a very entertaining card. I liked it. It's going to be interesting to see who on this card is going to be fighting in 2 or 3 weeks, because it's going to happen. Someone's going to, hop on in late notice and jump in there on Fight Island, because a lot of these guys want to go fight on Fight Island. And did you guys see the picture that Dana White uploaded of the octagon on the beach with the sunrise in the background? And I'm just like, man, that's a recipe for like heat exhaustion. But, what do I know?
Well, Dana White wasn't here, was he, this weekend? And I don't exactly know where he was, but he wasn't at the fight. So hopefully he's over there sorting stuff out, because we're 2 weeks away now, guys, from Fight Island.
Trying to find this beach.
Yeah, he is there.
Yeah.
He is there. I think he is there, because he said he was going to be there for like a month and a half or 2 months or something like that. So
he's got a quarantine, right? So I imagine no one from this card is going to actually make that quick turnaround, because I think if you're on those cards, you're already in the process of doing the quarantining and things like that. But who knows?
I guarantee you they're already making some arrangements right now with the fighters, because the fighters are flying out of Vegas after they get tested for coronavirus straight to Abu Dhabi, right? So if any of these guys want to actually fight, on Fight Island, they would stay there, try to get a fight set up, get quarantined, tested, and fly over there and then be on standby. Why not? Because they have the hotels, they have the infrastructure. So, but that also brings up the question, like, man, if you guys could spend all that money on all that junk, like all that stuff, why can't you pay the fighters more? Like, come on.
I mean, I was checking my phone in between the main event, and Luke Thomas tweeted, and he said, anyone who is watching this fight right now and thinks fighters get paid too much can do one or get off or F off. I can't remember exactly what he said, but something along the lines. And I mean, we don't want to go back down the rabbit hole of fighter pay, but Fight Island looks fantastic. It looks like it's going to be something we're going to remember for the rest of our lives.
This isn't even the fight. They're not going to fight in this cage on the beach. This is a training octagon. It's going to be it's basically an arena. It's not actually Fight Island. It's I'm not into this at all. I think they pulled the wool over our eyes. They teased it. We thought it was going to be like Mortal Kombat or something. Everyone arriving on speedboats, like fire, volcanoes in the background. No, it's just...
I thought it was going to be Epstein's Island, for the longest time. I was like, that island's available. Won't you get on there? It looks beautiful. I saw it on the documentary. But that probably wouldn't have worked well with the government and stuff.
The thing is, I think we'll see many events from Fight Island. I think it's going to be there to stay. And with their investments in Zuffa anyway, I won't be surprised if we see a Performance Institute pop up right next door.
That's a good segue talking about Fight Island because, yes, the next card, it's a monster, isn't it? I'm trying to bring it up here. UFC 251, is it on the 11th of July? So we got 2 weeks. Yeah, absolutely stacked, isn't it, Chris? You got 3 title fights, and we saw a glimpse. They ran a promo during the show tonight. We saw Max Holloway with lockdown hair. Have you seen this picture? It's so good. I'm going to try and bring it up.
Well, as well, I think 3 a.m. Hong Kong time, there will be the official trailer, I believe, of Fight Island will be released, which will be quite interesting.
I'm trying to find this. You saw it, John, right? The Red Max was interviewed.
Oh yeah.
I've got to show this.
That kind of concerns me about Max Holloway's preparations for this fight. You know why? Is because I just interviewed Martin Day. Martin Day is a guy that trains with Max Holloway, and he's fighting on the same card at 251, like the first fight of the night. And he hasn't been training with Max for this fight coming up. And everybody's kind of like isolated from each other, even on the island, and they're training separately. And normally they would train together if they have fights coming up. So it's like, and then I also heard that Max is on Twitch like 6 hours a day, and he's doing like Zoom classes. And I'm just wondering, like, is he really prepared for this fight? Because if you look at this picture, look at his hair. He looks like a reject from a K-pop band, like from 10 years ago or something like that, right? So it's concerning, you know what I mean? Like, I think I wonder what the odds are for this fight coming up against Alex Volkanovski. But if Alex is the underdog coming in, man, I would put money on Alex because I know he's been working hard because he's been posting a lot of stuff about his camp, and I actually know people that are in his camp training with him in Australia, and they're not leaving any stones unturned, so to say.
Well, here's the odds. Bring it up.
Okay.
Yeah.
That looks right.
Moderate favorite, -210, whatever that means. You're good with odds, right, Chris? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how to read betting lines American style. I'm
we're both English. We have the fractions, right? So Holloway +170, slight underdog. Anyway, it's an awesome card. Just quickly run through it. I will do a proper preview, I think, next week or the week after. So, Kamaru Usman v Gilbert Burns, welterweight title fight, main event. Sanford MMA training partners, friends for years and years and years. Volkanovski v Holloway, featherweight title. Vacant bantamweight fight, Peter Yan v Jose Aldo. There's controversial on that, but still should be a good fight, right?
Yeah.
Jessica Andrade v Rose Namajunas, which was cancelled from earlier the year when the pandemic broke out.
Fantastic fight.
Paige Van Zandt, always entertaining.
Yep. Got
a lot of fans against Amanda Ribas. Volkan Oezdemir v Yuri. Oh, I know you're excited about this one, aren't you,
Yeah,
John?
that's going to be a fantastic fight.
Yeah, and then Elizu Zaleski, Muslim Salikov. God, it's stacked, isn't it?
Yeah, it's stacked. It's nice to see.
Well, the main card is pretty stacked. It's probably the best card of the year, main card wise. Overall, I don't know. There's probably been a couple cards earlier this year. Man, that Rose, or not Rose, but the Zhang Weilei versus Joanna card was pretty stacked, right? So
Yeah.
It almost seemed like that was like 10 years ago for some reason, right? But it was only earlier this year, which trips me out. But yeah, this card is great. I feel like from Volkan Ozdemir versus Yuri Prochaska all the way up to the main event, there's some interesting matchups there. And also Paige Van Zandt, only reason she's interesting is because I wonder if she's gonna win this fight and test free agency, and I want to see how much money she can get off being like a mediocre fighter, but have this massive following, like outside of MMA, and if that would actually benefit her in contract negotiations. You never know. She might go to one championship. She
said she will
Let's
not
see.
sign anything until after this fight. She is waiting until after this fight. She wants to test free agency, see what her worth is, and as every fighter should do, it's your biggest opportunity to get a big payday, and it's very, very interesting. I actually don't think we'll see her resign with the UFC personally.
No, she won't. I don't believe that.
Yeah.
She could go to one championship. Like a couple of good fights there, I guess.
Yeah.
But talking about one championship, yeah, they're coming back, aren't they, Chris? July 31st, Bangkok.
Yeah.
We were talking in the elevator ride up here what we think the card's going to look like, but it sounds like, they may go to Tiger Muay Thai or something and be offering a lot of contracts.
Yeah.
It might be a lot of Muay Thai fights.
Yeah, I think.
No, I heard it's going to be basically a super series event. They were listing some of the fighters that are going to be on that card, and it's just all Bangkok based fighters. It seems like a lot of guys from Pedindi and just Muay Thai specialists and kickboxers. So I don't know if we're going to see that many MMA fights. We'll probably get a couple, but like you said, they're going to go down to Phuket and see if they can pick up some talent and see who's ready to fight and who's not signed yet. But I don't expect the best card, so to say, in this return. But it should be interesting for people that love the striking aspect, the striking arts.
Yeah, here's the thing. I'm bringing it up. Not much info, right? Yeah, Chachi posted about it, but yeah, he really hasn't given any details away. I wouldn't get my hopes up too high, right, Chris?
No, it's not going to be a top card, but you know what? Thailand is awash with fantastic kickboxers, fantastic Muay Thai specialists. And I mean, I just want to see one championship, get the show back on the road, get the fighters fighting. Let's get them paid. Let's bring the focus back to some more Asian MMA because it is fantastic time to be here. It's growing all the time. And one championship, Ryzen, Road, ARC, I want to see them all back.
Indeed. Great stuff. I don't think there's anything else to talk about. It's been a slow news week, hasn't it?
It has been a slow news week.
John, anything from your travels you mentioned?
I'm just mad that I can't go there. The reason why is if I come back, then I have to go into 2-week quarantine. It's like I wonder when that's gonna stop happening, where you have to go into quarantine when you return from another country. And I'm kind of curious if fighters outside of Bangkok are able to fly into Thailand. You know what I mean? Like, because it seems like they're not really letting people into Thailand unless it's under certain special circumstances. And what I've heard is like it's hard to even just leave Thailand.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Because if you want to return.
If you're from Japan, I know Japan have a scheme now where you can go to Vietnam and Thailand, but I believe it is fairly costly. It's generally for business people. And I think I heard it's about $5,000. You have to actually pay the governments for the testing and everything. So I have no idea, but that's one avenue. Australia, New Zealand are talking about a travel bubble with Vietnam and possibly Japan and Thailand later. So we really have to see. I mean, it is a very, very troubled time when you have an organization like one that is so spread out and its main market, Singapore, is a small market compared to something like the UFC where the US is huge.
Well, let's leave it there, gents, because I think you and I, Chris, have got to go and eat tapas. And
yeah, that's it.
I want to thank you, Chris, for wearing this post-fight shirt instead of your Liverpool shirt, because you turned up wearing this, and as a Man United fan,
we can show off our championships.
Oh no,
yeah,
none of that on this show. Yeah, Chris has been celebrating hard after Liverpool won the Premier League finally after 30 years. I guess you don't care about this at all, John. Some non-MMA content. Yeah. You have a team you care about, football?
No, I don't follow at all. I used to follow what is it? When I played the video game, that was like more than 10 years ago, Winning 11, that's when I knew all the players. But other than that, I never followed the sport at all, so I have no interest. But I watch any sport. It's just I don't like if I'm there with people, if there's like a crowd and it's a social thing. But other than that, I'm not sitting there at home watching you guys. But I do have like the free access to it because I pay for the sports channel, which gives me UFC, NBA, and all of the sports, even Premier League and Bundesliga and all that. But I just don't watch it. It's just I have no time, man.
Yeah.
All right, on that bombshell, let's leave it there. Thanks, Chris. Thanks, John. And yeah, we'll be back next week to hopefully there'll be some news to talk about. It has been pretty slow, as we mentioned there. Yeah, guys, everyone for watching, thank you very much for that. Hope you enjoyed the show. And yeah, we'll see you all again after a while. Cheers.
Hey guys, Sasha Platnikoff here, letting you know to tune in to SCMP post-fight for all your weekly martial arts news.